Hey guys, I'm Tyler and you're watching the TJS Bass channel. Today I am giving you a little rundown and a little overview of the latest news from Fender, which is that they are releasing a new range made in Mexico, which they've called the Vintera range. I'm just going to run through the specs, give my own kind of thoughts and views on what they've done, because the basses haven't reached the UK yet, and then hopefully I'll get hold of each one of them and give them a go in the next few weeks. So I'll see what I can do. But for now, let's look at the specs, look at the news, and I'm just going to give you my thoughts. I want you guys to let me know what your view is in the comments, what your opinion is of the new range, what they've done. But yeah, let's get through it, let's get to the specs and let's see. So first up, they've released the Precision bass. This looks incredibly similar to the Fender Precision Classic 50s that it's replacing. So the Classic Made in Mexico range is what the Vintera range replaces. I had the Classic 50s and you can check out the video of that on my channel. That's quite a popular video of mine. It's got around 30,000 views. And I'd imagine that gives you quite a similar sound to this new Vintera. What Fender have said is that they've revoiced the pickup to be a 50s pickup. I believe the pickup in the Classic 50s that I had was actually just a stock Mexican standard pickup. So supposedly a slight change there, but other than that, as with all of these basses, they've gone for very vintage specs. So it's a 7.25 radius, so you get quite a rounded fingerboard. It's got the same maple neck and fingerboard that the Classic 50s had, and it's got the same bridge and saddles. Differences are, I don't believe you could get an ash version previously, and now you can. The ash version is going to cost you £10 more if you're in the UK. I'm not sure why that is really. And it's coming in Dakota Red instead of Fiesta Red. Fiesta Red is my favourite Fender colour, so that's actually a bit of a loss for me. Seafoam Green and Vintage Blonde for the ash model. As far as it looks, I don't think it's going to be... I found on the Classic 50s that the neck was quite sticky, and it looks like they've gone for a similar approach with these from the images. Obviously haven't got my hands on one yet, but it feels like that might be the same. So yeah, that's the Precision bass, kind of very similar to the Classic 50s that it replaces. But the Classic 50s that I had was a really, really good bass. The prices for both, it's going to be £829 for the older body models. So that's the Dakota Red and the Seafoam Green. And then for the Vintage Blonde, not sure about the finish on the Vintage Blonde. Doesn't look quite as cool as the American Original series. The blonde on that looks really cool. This looks like it might be a little bit thicker because it's a poly finish. So maybe not quite, it's not really for me, but that's going to be £839 if you're in the UK. Then the next one, which I think is probably the more exciting, or maybe the most exciting out of all of these, particularly given how popular they've been recently, is the Fender Mustang. They've released a 60s Mustang, so it's a lot of people were crying out for this online. It's very much a vintage reissue of the classic Mustang design with the original bridge, which I know tons of people have been complaining about on forums, that big old plate of a bridge, and it's got the original Mustang style single P pickup. So while Fender have released their Performer series, the American model with the jazz bass at the back and then the smaller Mustang at the front pickup, and also with the modern bridges, this is really the classic 60s style Mustang and the quintessential Mustang. Good things about that for me are that it comes in Fiesta Red, because I love Fiesta Red, and the other colour is Sunburst and, oh yeah, Seafoam Green again. They've supposedly changed the pickup as well, so that's a 60s style pickup. Whether that will be really significantly different remains to be seen. It's a thin neck rather than, I think it'll be probably thinner than the Justin Meldal-Johnson Mustang bass. I actually really like the thicker neck on the JMJ, but the Mexican Mustang that I've got a video of and you can check out on my channel, I really enjoy playing that. And the Mustang is just a great little bass to have with you and carry around, I think. It's really, really useful, great backup bass, and for its very specific short scale thing, it's really cool. I actually sometimes prefer a Mustang to a P bass. So that's going to come in at £719 in the UK. So that's quite a lot more than the original made in Mexico Mustang, the standard Mustang that we've kind of become used to, but a little bit less than the JMJ. Well, quite a lot less, £200 less really. But doesn't have the nice nitro finish of the JMJ. Or the neck. But I think the fact that it is a 60s Mustang with the original bridge and those original cool styling and looks, I think it'll probably sell pretty well, and I think that price is quite sweet. Moving on, we then have the 60s jazz bass. I think these look really, really cool. They are coming in 3 colours: Fire Mist Gold, Daphne Blue, and the 3-colour Sunburst. I think the gold and the Daphne Blue look really, really good. Classic jazz bass really. It's got the same vintage neck profile as all the other basses in this series, so it's 7.25. It does have reverse tuners, which is a classic 60s thing to do. I've got reverse tuners on my 59p bass and I don't really notice the difference. Once you've got it on a gig, you do it for you first go to tune and then you get it the wrong way and then you remember. I'm not too fussed about reverse tuners. I think it's a bit of a pointless thing to do. I would probably have put the standard tuners on and just tune normally, because yeah, it's not vintage correct, but I just don't see the value to a player, and obviously at the end of the day that's the most important thing. 20 fret bass as you would for a 60s, and it's all to body. Again, Fender is saying that they've revoiced the pickups for a 60s style sound. Fender have done a 60s style jazz bass for a long time. They're regularly going back with, you know, the Flea model and others. I think it's a solid model to have, and again that comes in at the same price as the precision bass. One thing I would say is that from the pictures they've used online, the 3-color Sunburst looks like it's I think it's a 3-piece body, and the pieces they've used are completely unmatched. So whether they've done that deliberately because they aren't expecting to have particularly matched pieces when they ship, or whether that's just an error, I'm not sure, but it does look pretty bad because you can see it straight through the Sunburst, and the top piece has a really nice grain, and the second cut is just a bit grey looking and just has a completely different grain. Obviously at this kind of price, I guess you can't ask for everything, but for me it's pretty bad looking. Other thing to note is that all of these basses have got Powell Ferro fingerboards except for the Precision with its maple neck. I've got Powell Ferro Morado on my Sadowski UV70 and I enjoy that. I think it's actually a really good wood. The one thing I would say about the Fender Mexican range of basses with Powell Ferro is that it can vary and look quite orange sometimes. Nicer pieces of Powell Ferro can be quite dark and very much look like rosewood. But I do prefer the density and I do prefer the tone of Powell Ferro because it's a little bit more dense than rosewood and a little bit brighter, and it kind of sits somewhere between rosewood and maple, which does make it a really good versatile choice, and again gets you around the CITES problem, so touring with these basses won't be a problem. So the last bass from the Vintera range is the 70s jazz bass. That's a little bit more expensive than all the other basses, coming in at £899 in the UK. I suppose that goes into the extra little touches that you get with the 70s to make it look a bit more glam. One thing that did make me laugh on Fender's website was the idea that this is for players who want the style and sound of Fender's golden era, which I think many of you have played 70s jazz basses would probably think that's not necessarily true. Definitely there are some great 70s instruments from Fender. I fell in love with the 70s P that unfortunately sold before I could go back and get it, and I still think about that bass sometimes. Really great bass, but it was heavy, really heavy. And that was the thing that I was noticing about all the 70s basses, is they have real variety, a lack of consistency compared to some of the 60s jazzes and precisions I've played. They all seem a bit more consistent in terms of weights, and they just feel a bit more handcrafted, I suppose. Yeah, I've just had a bit more luck with the 60s ones than the 70s. But this is all about the kind of reissue of the style, I'd say, more than anything else. Quite a lot like the 75s that they used to make, the reissues. These have got pearl block inlays. Got to have them on a 75, on a 70s jazz. Same radius, as 7.25 radius, and again with the pickups, they've been saying that they're 70s voiced, and I imagine they're 70s spaced, but they haven't actually stated on their website, I don't believe, because the 70s jazz bass isn't really a 70s jazz bass unless it's got that spacing. So I'd expect maybe a little bit more scoop and a little bit brighter from the pickups, but we don't know whether they really are that much different. We'll have to see. Other little features that are unique to the 70s one, they've put Fender stamps on the back of the tuners. Again, for me, I don't really care that much. I do love the Fender tuners with the slightly larger back and the stamped single F. I think they look really cool. But these ones are honestly, they're just the same as the tuners on the rest of the basses in this range, I think. But then with Fender written on the stamp. For me, if they could have reduced the price and not put that on, I would have been happier. But if you like that, it's there, it's cool, and I suppose it's accurate to the time. In terms of colour, you're looking at aged natural, which I don't think looks very good from the pictures. It looks a bit yellowy, tobacco stained, and not really for me. Inca Silver is pretty cool. It's different, and I like that. And then the Sunburst, for me, those colours aren't really my favourite, so not really down for that. But obviously everyone's tastes differ. And again, that's got a Power Ferro fingerboard along with the mother of pearl. So that's kind of the roundup of the range. I think it's going to fit in well with how Fender are restructuring their range of basses. I do think with the classic 50s and the 50s style precision bass, they are pretty much going to be the same thing. Specs wise, they all line up as being the same bass, so I'd argue it's probably, with all Fenders, I think sometimes you get a great one and sometimes they're not so great. So just try them out, and if you end up with a 50s, classic 50s rather than a Vintera, I wouldn't be too upset. I think the real winner here is the Mustang. I think that's really cool, and that'll have a lot of people interested in it, and that classic look and having that classic bridge back. I think that's probably going to be the winner out of these range. And then the jazz basses, they're just good, well-built jazz basses, I imagine. I will say that the classic 50s I had was really well built, and again, these are built to around the same price in the same factory, and I think they're probably going to be really good basses. For me, whether you're going for American Performer or the Vintera, sometimes I would argue maybe going for the Vintera. I actually don't particularly like any of the Performer basses that I've played. I've played a couple of the Mustangs, I've played the jazz basses, and I've played the Precision as well. Yeah, I played all of them, and I really wasn't that keen on those. So I might get those in again and have a look, maybe get a tone demo of those and see what I feel. Maybe with a little bit of setup that might be different. But yeah, for me, I think Fender, a classic Fender move. They've reissued things. People go to Fender for a jazz bass, a P bass and a Mustang, well nowadays a Mustang, and I think they've done that well, and I think the winner for me is going to be that Mustang bass. Let me know in the comments what you think of the new Vintera range of basses, and which of these is the one that's really sparking your interest the most. For me, it's that Fiesta Red Mustang, which I really want to give a try. Thank you for watching. More videos incoming as ever, so don't forget to hit the like button if you like this video, and hit the subscribe button. And as I say, I will try and get hold of these and get some tone demos to you guys, and some actual hands-on impressions. But for now, that's the latest news from Fender, and the latest thing that's going on over there. You've been watching the TJS Bass channel. Thank you so much.